Today's waffle is strawberry sugar cookie waffle.
Awesome.
And it managed to stay together, and I'll tell you how. I used this mix, and I didn't mix as directed. I just mixed as much water as it looked about right, and I'll tell you in a minute how I did this. So I'm going to review Sleepwalker, Stoneflight, Tapping the Dream Tree, and The Falling Woman. And once I'm done that, then I'll put it over to James, because I'm sure he has something to talk about.
Well, it's been maybe a while since we've reviewed books, so I've got a few.
Okay. Oh, good. Yeah, well, I have a stack too.
Yeah, well, I'll just mention, since we're mentioning, I brought out some.
Yeah, I'll get to yours in a minute. It's okay.
I wasn't going to get to them. I was just going to mention at the beginning, but it doesn't matter.
Oh.
Because we might not get to them. It'd be like a trailer for whatever. But go ahead.
The sugar cookie waffle, what I did was I mixed that whole package, which makes 12 2-inch cookies, which is not the size of the cookies on the picture. It has been enlarged to make it look like a normal cookie size. But that whole package makes one waffle. That whole package of mix. So that's 12 cookies. And James can look at the nutritional information if he cares to.
I'm gonna check it out.
How I managed to get that waffle to stay together was I realized I only had enough mix for one waffle. And really, I mean, I shouldn't eat that. James shouldn't eat that either. But we had it given to us for free, and I thought I'd give it a go. He wanted to eat it. And so I mixed it with some water. I didn't put any of it says to mix butter in there. I didn't put it, because what I did is I rubbed coconut oil on the waffle iron. So I didn't put any in the waffle. And then once the waffle iron, I let it cook too much. I could smell that the sugar was starting to caramelize, and I was like, oh no, because I wanted it to stay white, right? But I could smell that, so I unplugged the waffle iron right away, and it still looks pretty good. I think James will like it. So what I found, that if I have a sticky kind of mix with sugar, if I make just one waffle and I unplug the iron and I just leave it for 15 minutes or something, then I can actually open the waffle iron without pulling the waffle apart. So if you're really keen on having a sweet waffle, that's how. Otherwise, you'll just rip it apart. So
I just want to show you were mentioning the picture was enlarged. I want to show why they show the pictures enlarged. So it says both in English and in French.
To show detail.
To show the detail. Yeah. Okay, which so you can
really
see.
Not it. It's really to show.
What detail?
They want to show that it looks like a regular cookie size, but it's not. You're not going to get 12 that size.
Yeah. Sorry, I said biscuit, because that's kind of like the French for cookie biscuit.
So we'll see what James has to say about that waffle. I read this. I put page 66, ad for Nescafe. I don't know. I look for ads in the fiction books because they're in here. And I don't know, though, if this one was intentional, but the novel is not quite as it seems to be. It is a mystery and murders occur, but not quite as expected. I don't think anybody would like reading about cats being killed. So I would have preferred not to reading details about that. I don't like the cover art at all. It's ugly. And I don't care for the title. It seems to make sense at the beginning of the story. The main character sleepwalks, but it has nothing to do with the story at all. Perhaps the reader is meant to find parallelism at the end of the story with a certain other length of leather character who appears to have sleepwalked. Somehow it just doesn't work. It does make sense that the author is a poet. It says in here that he is.
Oh my.
Yeah, he won some awards. He has been honored with a creative writing fellowship from the National Endowment for the Arts and an Omation Press Award for poetry.
Yeah. Might have something to do with homage or something
I
like
have
that.
no idea. Because I did find some of the wording artful. I had mentioned something to James as I read it. It was a fossilized something. I don't remember what it was. Perhaps an expression? Fossilized expression? I don't know. It was good. Whatever it was, perhaps the author should stick to writing poetry. I did not like this book.
Let's just see what he looks like.
Okay.
Does he look like a mathematician? Does he at least keep the weight off?
Stone.
Well, he keeps the weight off. I got to say that for him.
Yeah.
Which would help with brain function.
Yeah. Stoneflight. It's a sort of Wizard of Oz. The girl remains on Earth, but the Tin Man comes to her. I enjoy reading it. I don't know how much I would have enjoyed reading it or having it read to me as a child. The artwork is great. It doesn't look great on the cover.
She even showed the
But
stuff on the
it's
inside to me.
amazing.
So she usually doesn't bother me when she's
No.
reading, because I'm reading stuff or
But
researching or whatever.
Here's
But-
one. Here's one. You can see. There's quite a bit of it in there. It's pretty good. I was impressed anyway.
I was impressed too.
Yeah. So I'll just, well, I don't need to put that one up. I don't need to put that one. So, yeah. Oh, Stoneflight is meant to be read by, it's for a juvenile audience, but I don't know.
Were you guessing 12-year-olds or something like
Maybe
that? Or something?
10. But it was enjoyable. I think the pictures alone made it enjoyable. I was wondering about creatures made of stone and how, believable it would be for... I wanted to write about a creature that was made of stone that could fly, and I wanted to make it so that people would actually think, oh, possible. I don't know. I haven't come up with the possible yet, but I mean, at least other people have come up with it, and maybe they pulled it off. I don't know. It didn't bother me that there was stone creatures flying in there.
Speaking of pulling things off, you pulled this off. It's amazing.
Good.
It's tasty. And it holds together.
Yeah.
Better than maybe regular waffles.
Incredible.
Well, you can see it's like holding together like crazy. Like when you're flipping around. The little crumb came off.
Okay, so tapping the dream tree. First typo, page 31. Page 51, her fiddle is supposed to be blue. The one on the cover is not, and it's drawn too small.
That's it. Oh, yeah. Oh.
Yeah, I don't know how...
She's using one of those
artists made
Suzuki
that.
kids fiddles.
Yeah, maybe. I agree completely with the sentiments expressed on pages 122 to 125. Sometimes those bad things seem impossible to free our minds and hearts from. Once you manage to free yourself, you will be stronger, but it's tough to do. It is far easier to forgive others than it is to forgive ourselves. That's why we're here, though, to make mistakes, learn from them, and forgive ourselves. Learning forgiveness is vital. Forgiveness restores our vitality and builds it stronger than it had previously been. I was wondering why they hadn't marketed this story to kids, then read, "It's funny to douse a bum with gasoline and chase him with a match." Not for kids. Page 172. I don't know about the atom bomb thing, but certainly in electricity. Page 225, and once previously. The author used nauseous when meaning nauseated. The narrator is a character, but I still cannot accept his incorrect thoughts. Dialogue is acceptable. Thoughts aren't. Page 254, good quote. Maybe I should read that good quote. I don't know what it was. Oh, hate doesn't need a skin color to be ugly. Yeah. That was a good one. They were the author had put some characters in, and somebody was saying that in prison there were sides, and if you weren't part of one, then you were part of the other, and the Aryans didn't like it if you wouldn't join them. But that if you didn't want to join them, then it didn't mean that you wanted to be with the militant blacks or anything. And so there was all this. But yeah, I like that hate doesn't need a skin color to be ugly.
Society's increasingly becoming like that prison. You gotta pick sides. I'm not picking them when we're dealing with militants of either side, militias or militants. I'm not interested. Well, I am too interested, really.
The electricity idea from page 172 was good, but less interesting when retold on 264. That's what I thought initially, but then I did change my mind. Perhaps Richard will end up figuring into a future story. You'd have to read it to know. It might make the repetition worthwhile, and later on, like I said, I changed my mind about that. So I enjoyed reading this collection of short stories. The magic stuff doesn't seem fantasy to me. Perhaps only those like me would enjoy reading this. I guess Delint did win the World Fantasy Award, so either there are people like me out there or other types enjoy it just as fantasy. Who knows? So...
It looks like a Dutch name. She actually, is it a woman?
No, I think it was Guy.
A guy. A guy. A white guy actually won an award? Must have been a while back.
Yeah.
But nowadays, it's got to be a person of color, like Will Smith.
Okay.
He might have deserved the Academy Award. But.
So now I'm talking about Pat Murphy, The Falling Woman. And of the books, I actually like this cover art the most. But it wasn't the best art. The best art was actually in that Stoneflight. It was amazing. So... this is an interesting story with a different perspective on suicide and insanity, page 125, and on Explain Ixtab, a Mayan goddess who escorts people who die of suicide or sacrifice to paradise. Bloodletting and self-mutilation are essential parts of many rituals. Page 131 offers a warped view of Christianity. You can look at the death of Christ as the worshipping of sacrifice, but if you do, you've missed the point of Christianity. I used to see the symbol of Jesus on the cross as a character speaking, as the characters speaking here did. Jesus' death ended human sacrifice. We worship Jesus for stopping sacrifice. That is the point that I had missed for most of my life. When one worships Jesus, one worships love and gentleness, not cruelty and human sacrifice. Self-mutilation and suicide attempts may not be signs of insanity, but when a mother of a young child abandons her child without saying where she's going or when she'll be back, supporting herself by typing or whatever else while she's living like a single woman, she's not fit to be a mother. She's selfish and hasn't put her daughter first. If such a woman wants to sacrifice, she should sacrifice by parenting her daughter, even if she doesn't want to. A woman who has children is a serious asshole if she tries to commit suicide, even if she's not insane. Besides telling the fictional story about a daughter and really bad mother being reunited as adults, the author teaches the reader about Mayan culture. One can learn how to use a Mayan calendar on page 146. That was interesting. Although the book is advertised as a fantasy, I think the only fantastical notion was suggesting that the mother and daughter could have a good relationship as adults. The summary advertising the book on the inside sleeve to the left is more interesting than the book itself. I did enjoy reading this though. But out of these books, I would say this one was the most interesting. So that's all I have to say.
That's why you're standing them up, because they're...
Yeah, those two were the only ones really. You know, Stoneflight, if you want to look at the pictures, that's great. The book wasn't bad, but it really wasn't that great either. You know, considering that it was for juvenile audience, I don't know that many kids would really go for it. That's all.
Well, this is why it won awards. It was 20 years ago, so...
Okay.
If you're a person of none-color, shall we say, you don't win awards anymore. Particularly if you're a guy, and particularly if you're a straight guy.
All right, so you can go ahead and talk about whatever you want. I'm going to eat strawberries in the sun.
Taras Shevchenko, 2 volumes, poetry. I think it's considered the Shakespeare of Ukrainian literature. So, people of Ukrainian extraction, whether you're in the Ukraine, refugee from the Ukraine, or whether your ancestors came from the Ukraine, we're watching. And we would be watching, even if we weren't watching and weren't, even if Pauline weren't a quarter Ukraine. Excuse me. I've been to the Ukraine. This is a book I got when I was there. I was in Kiev in the fall time. This is Kiev in the colors of autumn. So it was seasonal. They were selling it, and I'm very glad I got it. I went through it a while back. Finally got through it. It took me 30 years or so. I was there in 1991, and I think I finished it up in last year. It took me a long time to be able to get through the Ukraine, but I don't know if I put in here when I finished it. But yeah. Anyway, we're watching. You know, like it just when I visited the former Soviet Union just a few weeks really after it fell. I was there early October. I visited Moscow and Minsk, capital of Belarus, and Kiev, and St. Petersburg. It was still called Leningrad then. And I'd say the most beautiful was Kiev, but I guess the Russians can't stand that, and they're trying to destroy it. So we're watching, and here's another thing that I got at secondhand. Again, Kiev. That's more like the Russian pronunciation. A photo of how I reviewed that a while back, but this is just so people know that we're keeping it in mind. Now, what I'm afraid of is that our right-wingers are going to turn on the Ukrainians when they already had, right at the beginning, Donald Trump saying, well, you know, go Putin, go, all this sort of stuff. Fox Network apparently was doing cheerleading until they realized that it was kind of unpopular. But they'll be back on that bandwagon, I'm afraid, when they start to realize how much oil prices are going to go up if this continues much longer. So I'll show the books that I'll be reviewing, if not today. Probably not today, but sometime in the next little while. Some things I've finished. But Pauline was mentioning where they're writing a fiction, a piece where a mother committed suicide or something like that. Yeah. This happened to Demi Moore, wasn't it?
Well, she didn't commit suicide. She tried to.
Okay.
It's unclear. She might have just been trying to... I don't want to give the story away, but she would have died if somebody hadn't agreed.
So Pauline got hold of this book for free. Yeah, there's no way I would have spent money on it, but a parent, Demi Moore's father, not mother, committed suicide. She was a little bit older, but she wasn't even 18, she was still a kid. So, the guy had problems with alcohol. That's her dad. Had problems with alcohol, I think with drugs as well. But you know, you got responsibilities when you got kids. And it doesn't matter if it's a mother or a father. You don't do things like commit suicide. Frankly, you know, like if you've got problems with alcohol, you try to get over them harder than these folks did. They were young when they had her. They were I think they were teenagers. They weren't even 20. Both her mother and father. Her mother had problems that I guess she couldn't help because apparently she was bipolar. Died quite young. She was a heavy smoker and a heavy drug user. I think she died of lung cancer from smoke. It also spread to her brain. So I don't know which one killed her, but her parents were really awful to her and to each other, and maybe worst of all to themselves. But this is kind of like a book of triumph because she's, at one point in time, she was the highest paid actress in Hollywood. Of course, it was a little over half of what her husband made. And I don't know if he was even the highest paid actor. So at that point in time, it was like $12 million per movie, not per year. And for Bruce Willis, her then husband, it was $20 million. So it was significantly higher. And they were doing, she said in that one year, she made 4 movies and he made 4 movies. Stunning how much money they would have been pulling in, you know, 48, somewhere around 48 million. I don't know if she was earning 12 million in all of those movies. but it could have been somewhere around 48 million for her, and something like, no guarantee, Willis was making 20 million for every movie, but it could have been something like 80 million. And together, well, that's $128 million per year. That's like winning the lottery and then some. But I don't know how well they manage money. I guess Bruce Willis was very good at managing money. And Demi Moore has had troubles with substance abuse, alcoholism, and cocaine, and I think for a short period some sort of medication, some sort of tranquilizer and things like that. I hope she's been able to maintain it. This book was written, I think, quite recently, 2017, 29. So, she's writing it kind of like, it kind of has, even though it's not a finished story, it has a happy ending, happy provisional ending. I hope it continues to be a good for her. It looks as though she raised her 3 daughters by Bruce Willis quite well, at least according to her accounting of it. And I think her daughters are quite there was a period there where they were all stopped talking to her. And so it was a very complicated story. I kind of expect that from people who make it big in the various media, movies in particular, and music as well. Maybe worse in music. There always seems to be some sort of substance abuse problems and so on and so forth.
But you enjoyed the story a lot.
I did. I just read it, and I mentioned it.
I
mentioned it. Features. Ashton Kutcher. What attracted her to him? I don't think he's even that good looking. He's a tall guy. And some women just love tall guys, and I think tall guys, tall women to a certain extent.
I don't know. It was probably, honestly, I don't know, but I mean, she wasn't a young woman at that time.
She was 40, and he was 25 when they got together.
Yeah, and it was probably a bit of an ego boost for her to have a young guy.
Of course.
And for him, I mean, he might have been, when he was younger, he might have thought, oh, she's the dream woman for him, or whatever.
Well, it's hard to say.
You never know.
Well, we had other fantasies, shall we say.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know whether to mention it or not.
Nah.
But
she didn't, so...
Well, she did mention it.
Yeah, but no.
But we don't know exactly
No.
what was involved in the fantasy.
No.
So,
but it seems like
a
pretty clear mystery solved.
Well, I will mention what she, not what we figure was involved.
Okay.
Because I don't want to get involved in that sort of stuff.
No.
But I will say, Ashton, buddy, if you score a good-looking woman like this, or if you score any sort of woman, one should be enough. Right? That's, if you get married to someone, that should be enough for the rest of your life. But when you're married to someone, particularly, you don't want to share the bed, or you shouldn't want to, with someone else. Hey, Ashton, buddy? Yeah, I know you were 25 when you hit 25. When you're a guy, you'd better be mature enough to handle a relationship. Between 15 and 25, that's the most violent segment of the population.
Do
Pauline,
the experimenting then.
Yeah. So Pauline has, she looked at was that a course or something like that, where the guy is a specialist on brain structure, brain physiology, and he was saying people, not just guys, their brain isn't totally formed until about age 25.
Yeah, some a little bit later too, but...
well, it looks like Ashton culture.
Your prefrontal cortex is not done developing.
Yeah.
It's not done.
So one of the first thing he does, apparently, they're having...
so he might have just been a little bit too young for...
Well, I mean, she should have known. I mean, he was doing punked. And he's already made it, that's what he morphed into from...
Yeah.
What was that 70s show?
Oh. Yeah, you still have 4 minutes.
Yeah. And, geez, Punk, I think I've seen Punked or a spin-off or something like that. It was grotesque, really.
Really?
All sorts of pranks that could have ended up with people dying or whatever. So stupid things. So, but one of the first things he does, I think she was saying...
I don't know if that was Punked that you...
Okay, what I meant by spin-off. It was something that was similar. It was a copycat thing. I don't think it's the same thing.
Yeah, I don't.
It's I think it's similar. So it's
Okay.
just for people who have the minds of infants.
Yeah.
So she'd been 20 years. I think is a little bit too long, but she'd been off of alcohol for many, many years, and then they're together eating, like a civilized meal. It's probably a huge spread, and he's drinking some wine or something like that, and he said, "Oh, it's civilized. It's
Well,
not
yeah, he was saying
alcoholism
it's
if you just have a little
a
sip."
myth or whatever. He thought
Wow.
addiction was.
So she starts, and of course she's falls off the wagon face first, in mud and stuff like it's terrible. And then what happens is he's kind of doesn't like her as an alcoholic. Well, who's at fault? I mean, she made a decision, but he tempted her. Hey, like if you're with an alcoholic, eating, socializing, you drink water, Ashton, buddy.
Not that either of us are alcoholics. We just.
Water, milk, whatever. You don't tempt people. It's bad enough that that he was doing that in front of her, but of course he's saying, have a little, that sort of stuff. So anyway, it was the other. I think the other reason, I kind of am fascinated by Ashton Kutcher. I got to say, I'm not sure why.
Okay.
Because I don't think he's dumb as he was portraying himself or being portrayed on that 70s show.
Mm.
I think he's got problems, and unfortunately visits problems on other people. But Bruce Willis, I always liked him. Right from the get-go.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
He was
That's
great.
what interested me. And I'm afraid he wasn't, I suspect he was cheating on her like a chase.
Oh, why? Does it say so in the book?
I think she kind of suspects it.
Oh.
He kind of looked as though he's getting bored. And the way she says was, when you're making that much money, and you're kind of that, like good with words and so on and so forth. Apparently he's a stutterer, though.
Oh, really?
And I'm wondering if that was the early stage of what he suffered from now, so that he gave up his movie career. And that's of this last week. He's got aphasia, so he won't be able to talk very well. It's shameful when you've got someone who's that good at slinging the words, and Die Hard is. I generally don't like those guy type of things.
No, but I loved his movies.
Yeah. I gotta admit, the other one, a series that I like is Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible.
Yes,
because
so
they
good.
just do the job.
Yeah.
But I shouldn't be advertising for them, but that's what Tom Cruise.
Oh,
movies
everybody
make to
loves
do.
those movies, don't they?
Yeah. Whereas, there'd be all sorts of people.
I don't know why people wouldn't. They're so good.
Fogoshis. So that didn't like the James Bond movies back in the day, and so on and so forth. So I was mentioning, I'm afraid that there's a lot of people that on the right wing that'll be turning on the Ukraine when the economy starts going bad if the war goes that long. And of course the left wingers. You look at the people that have been supporting the Russians going into the Ukraine, not supporting Ukraine. I believe it's like North Korea, Venezuela. I'll have to check about Cuba. I'll have to check about what's another one. Mexico again has turned left wing, and the very left wing, and they were supporting the Russians. So that's what commies do. Like I know someone who was saying recently, Putin is about the worst thing that they could think of. They're left wing and borderline Fogoshis. And they were saying he's a capitalist. What? He's set up a People's Republic.